What happens when the people sworn to protect you become the ones you need protection from? What do you do when you're not just a civilian but a U.S. Marshal and you still find yourself face to face with tyrant cops on a power trip? This isn't one of those made-up scary stories. This is a true crime story. Mine. No body cam, no dash cam, just raw memory and the kind of terrifying encounter that sticks to your bones. If you've ever questioned the system, this video will give you answers and more questions. Let's talk about the day I learned that wearing a badge doesn't make you bulletproof, and sure as hell doesn't make you immune to police profiling. Buckle up. Let's rewind the clock to March 2006. I was 21 years old, fresh-faced, making $80,000 a year, as a brand new U.S. Marshal, and still in my probationary phase. Honestly, this was a big deal for a young black man in South Carolina. But despite the title, despite the badge, one thing never left me: my fear of the police. See, I didn't grow up trusting cops. I grew up hearing scary stories about police shootings, interrogations, and run-ins that ended with folks in jail for crimes they didn't commit. I always thought that fear would go away once I became one of them. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Especially not in South Carolina. Especially not on I-95. Especially not in Florence County, the land of quotas, questionable stops, and police activity that looks more like a crime scene than a traffic stop. It was the beginning of the month, which is prime time for quota-fueled chaos. Police don't say quota, of course. They call it contacts or vehicle interactions, but in reality it's hunting season. And lucky me, I stumbled into the woods. Driving southbound on I-95, I made sure to stay 5 miles under the speed limit, literally watching cops pulling people over every 3 to 5 minutes. Blue lights flashing. Folks pulled out of their vehicles like it was some low-budget war on drugs reboot. It was so wild it felt like I was in a nightmare. So I'm coasting at 65 and a 70, thinking I'm invisible to this madness. And then a car speeds past me. Easy pickings, I thought. I even laughed to myself, thinking, yep, they got him. They slowed down next to me, then slid in behind me. It was like they thought I owed them child support and 3 warrants. Now my palm's sweating. My heart's pacing. I'm checking my speed, checking my mirrors, trying to drive straighter than a ruler. Then it happens. One little swerve. One tire grazes the white line. Blue lights. I'm hit. I get pulled over. I'm calm but still anxious. Why? Because even with a badge of my own, I know how these police encounters can go south real quick. The deputy walks up, respectful at first. I didn't have my license on me, which is a dumb mistake, I admit. He takes what info I give him and disappears for 30 minutes. That's like interrogation level suspense. I'm sitting there thinking, did I forget to pay a ticket? Did Florida forget to send my child support? Did someone steal my identity and commit a crime under my name? This wasn't just terrifying. It was also humiliating. He comes back, except this time with a completely different energy. He tells me, technically I could take you to jail for driving without a license, but I'm going to work with you. Then the setup. Do you mind if I search your vehicle? I said no, respectfully. Then comes the leverage. Well, my only other option is to take you to jail, so guess what? I gave in and caved. I stepped out, no resistance, calm. Suddenly I'm surrounded by more than 10 deputies. When did they even show up? Turns out he was stalling until his backup arrived. Even though I was cooperative, I was yanked out, slammed, and handcuffed like I was carrying bricks of dope in the trunk. But supposedly I'm not under arrest, just detained. Detained, with my face in the dirt. While I'm lying there with my wrist bound like I'm being escorted into prison, they ransack my car. Finally, one of them opens the visor. Out falls my federal ID. The vibe changed instantly. The deputy who cuffed me, suddenly sweating like he just ran a mile. I'm uncuffed. The smug look, gone. Now he's all, bro, all you had to do was tell me you were one of us. One of us? Bro, you had a small army throw me to the ground like I was El Chapo's nephew. I held my tongue. I stayed professional, because I knew. During my first year, one outburst during probation, and I'd be back to clocking minimum wage and eating dollar burgers. He apologized 10 times. I didn't report him. Call it youth. Call it code. Call it foolish pride. I let it go. But guess what? A few weeks later, I'm at a drug task force training. Different branches of law enforcement, local, state, federal. Guess who's there? It's Mr. Rough Me Up himself. Southern hospitality made it hard not to acknowledge him, so I shook his hand and moved on. Then came the kicker. During training, we're taught about indicators of possible narcotics transport. One of the signs. A single air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror. I glance at him. He looks down in shame. After class, I asked him, "Was that why you pulled me over?" He said, "Yeah, bro, that's why." So an air freshener nearly got me assaulted, searched, and tossed in jail. Welcome to being a cop in America, where sometimes the scariest thing about wearing a badge is the other people wearing it too. This wasn't about law. This wasn't about justice. This was about a system that doesn't trust itself. It was a terrifying reminder that police misconduct isn't just a civilian problem, it's a law enforcement truth. If this had happened to someone else, someone without federal credentials, would it have ended the same? Or would it have been another headline about a police shooting gone wrong? All I know is this: whether you're behind the badge or standing in front of it, fear is real, mistrust is real, and tyrant cops. They don't care who you are until they realize you outrank them. If you've ever had an encounter that changed how you saw the system, drop it in the comments. Like, subscribe, and share to the Guardian File, where true crime stories, law enforcement truths, and behind-the-badge nightmares get brought into the light. That day didn't end with a lawsuit. It didn't make the headlines, but it stuck with me like all true crime stories that never get told. And the lesson wasn't just about police activity, it was about how quickly power can twist into paranoia. It was about how wearing a badge doesn't protect you from the very system you work in. That day, I experienced firsthand the damage a tyrant in uniform can do. And for the record, yes, I believe in good cops. But I also believe in accountability. Because too often, rogue cops hide behind the badge, shielded by silence. See, people love scary stories about serial killers and escaped convicts. But some of the scariest stories I've ever seen, they wore uniforms, they carried guns, they smiled during interrogations like it was just paperwork. Let's be real, this wasn't about a dash cam catching a criminal. This was about being profiled, judged, cornered. And even though there was no police shooting, I can promise you my fear was just as real. That encounter was a terrifying moment of reckoning. A nightmare that reminded me the difference between safety and suspicion is one wrong move or one wrong officer. I wasn't taken to jail that day, but I felt imprisoned. I wasn't thrown into a prison, but I lived with that tension the same way every wrongly profiled person lives with it. And let's talk about law for a second. What law protects you from being slammed to the ground when you've committed no crime? What law justifies calling in 10 squad cars for one unarmed compliant driver with no record? That's not law. That's legalized intimidation. If it weren't for that little slip of plastic, my federal credentials, what would have happened? Would I have made it home? Or would I have been another suspect matching a vague description buried in red tape and forgotten files? That's why I tell this story, because the thin blue line is real, but sometimes it chokes out the truth. I didn't become a U.S. Marshal to be feared. I joined to serve, to help bring real criminals to justice, not to be hunted by my own team on a South Carolina highway. And here's what they never teach you in the academy. Being a cop doesn't make you bulletproof. It doesn't make you innocent in every cop's eyes. And it sure as hell doesn't protect you from tyrant cops with something to prove. So yeah, this was a true police story, but not the kind they show on TV. No dramatic police shooting. No heroic chase. Just a simple traffic stop that turned into a terrifying, humiliating, borderline criminal interrogation. All because I drove a silver Impala with an air freshener. If you've ever had a run-in with police that felt more like a crime than a call for justice, drop your true crime story in the comments. And if this video hit home, smash that like button, share this story, and subscribe to the Guardian File, where we don't just tell scary stories, we expose them. Because the truth is sometimes the scariest story of all.